Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic, and welcome to this deep woo-woo episode entitled The Quantum Woo with MARYAM HENEIN and Bernard Gunther. Let me first introduce my co-host for this evening, MARYAM. You can find her work here at MARYAM HENEIN on YouTube and also on her new Twitter for now, Miss B Lady. MARYAM, welcome back to the show.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. It's been a bit. It's been a while.
It's been a bit. Well, thank you for being here, MARYAM, and excited for the show. And of course, to you, the audience here, please give a big warm welcome back to the show for the second time here. You can find Bernhard Gunther here at veilofreality.com. It's my third show today. Can you imagine? And also here on YouTube and also on his Telegram here at Time of Transition. Mr. Gunther, welcome back to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me back, MARYAM and Jean-Claude. Awesome.
Yes.
To see you guys.
Happy to have you. Bernard, let's start with you. We haven't seen you in a while here. What's new in your neck of the woods? What's going on with you?
In the neck of the woods, my wife, Laura, and I, we are very busy right now. We're doing a lot of our group coaching program at Time of Transition about its soul awakening. We take 40 people on an in-depth journey. Yeah, right there. And we're doing just a lot of one-on-one work, like going through this fourfold approach of holistic self-work in the context of the outer work, kind of combining it all during this time of transition, because what we realize people need, this foundational inner work to deal with the energies and the changes coming.
Right.
And what's interesting, we've noticed, we just started a new round, and the next round will start on January 3rd, which I actually just filled up. We're getting tons of applications. More and more people are drawn to this work. More and more people are actually waking up, quote, getting red-pilled, so to speak, especially over the past year. Yeah. That's the silver lining of what's happening with all this, this medical tyranny to take over. Yes, a lot of people go along with the agenda, but we've noticed many people are starting to ask questions, starting to wake up, right?
Right.
And then people like us, maybe that we have been in this territory for a while, we kind of help other people in this process of awakening. Because more needs to be done than just being aware of whatever works externally and what happens externally, right? But the inner alignment, a lot of stuff comes up for people, the disillusionment process, so to speak, like letting go of the old life. A lot of people do struggle. It's not easy, right? The friction within families, relationships, friends, right? That's kind of like diverting, like it ties into the individuation process. Careers, jobs, and all of that. But within all of that, there's a silver lining, I feel, an opportunity in the splitting right now and what is happening. And we just need to really align within ourselves with our deeper soul purpose and for purposeful being here. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what I've been busy with, focusing on that work.
I was going to say that's a lot of hard work.
It's pretty intense holding the space, but we love the work. We're learning, we're moving along. And in the meantime, I also do my best to what I call spread seeds awareness. I write articles on my website. I'm on We have also, Laura and I, we have our own podcast, Cosmic Matrix Podcast, where we release episodes every 2 weeks as well. And those are going really well. And we see definitely more and more people listening to it, more attention and all of that. Maybe you guys can see this in your work as well. There's definitely something happening, I would say, in the positive sense, beyond all the madness and craziness that's happening.
Right. Let me ask you another question here, and then I'll bring MARYAM in for the topic of conversation for tonight. You were just mentioning these courses, and of course, there's more and more appetite for this because we're all struggling here. There's a lot of changes happening very quickly. For me, I see like really two things. Even us, the people who are already awake, we are also going through this at the same time as everybody else. We're being called to up-level our game because more people are waking up, and so we have to be even more present and spend even more energy. And at the same time, we are also having to go through this mourning of the old system that's going away, the friends that are going away, the people that are dying. So it's a challenge even for the light workers or light warriors, whatever you want to call them. So I'm curious, what's the split percentage-wise between people who are just waking up to take these courses of transition and people who are already doing the work but need a little bit of extra help leveling up so that they can take on all of this new extra demand being thrown at them, as you say here, because so many people are waking up right now.
That's a great point, Jean-Claude. I want to emphasize that as well. Like, Laura and I, we don't claim to be awake in the true meaning of the word, right? That's complete enlightenment. It's a journey, right? And there are different levels in the awakening process. And the first level is like the information level of what's happening in the world as opposed to what we've been told and taught. So that's already one stage of awakening. But then we will go deeper because what a lot of people are struggling with, they realize all their beliefs, wants, needs, and desires were based on lies and illusion in many degrees. That's crumbling, right? Based on the world that was not reality, right? Even culturally, socially conditioned, based on trauma, wounding. A lot of, again, goals, aims, and desires people had were actually literally not their own. So it's about dismantling all of that to find our true self, our inner guidance, and ultimately align with the divine, so to speak, finding our deeper purpose here, right? And that's a journey for each of us. And we all, teachers and students alike, but people like us who have been on the road, I've done this work on my website, writing about this for over 20 years. I've seen the writings on the wall, right? Back then, nobody would listen to me, laugh at me, and all of this, and like, okay, here we go. From an ego perspective, I could say, I told you so, but I'm also like,
it's too late for that now.
But I'm also in the process, like you mentioned, thank you. Like, it's also like I'm dealing with a lot of stuff I have to engage in the work, right? And you made a good point, the mourning process. What people need to go through is the grieving process, because I see various reactions. Some people embrace that fire to burn in this fire of transmutation, the disillusionment, the rebirth to it's a death rebirth process, like the plutonium process, right? That's really what it is. And many people who are like committed, the warrior attitude, like they sincerely can engage in it. And like, as Adyashanti said, enlightenment is a destructive process, right? And it brings up everything out of the shadows. And we see this in the world right now. Everything needs to come out of the shadows, within and without. So I always say, I'm not a light worker. Light worker is a shadow worker, right? You need to bring all of that's in the way of who we truly are. And that's happening externally and internally. And what I see, there are various directions. Some people also, check out, disassociate, right? Getting into addiction, don't want to deal with it. I see also many people, especially people who just woke up, taking the new age pill. No disrespect, but kind of like spiritual bypass. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I'm already in 5D and yada, yada, and all of this. Like lying to themselves in so many ways, and I'm
ascended. Yeah, everything's fine. We already won.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I mean, if you study, I'm big into like really the esoteric process, and as Carl Jung said, also from shadow work perspective, the tree that reaches to heaven needs to have its roots in hell. Or Sri Aurobindo from the integral yoga perspective, no one can reach heaven who has not walked through hell. And this is the metaphor, meaning like it is an uncomfortable process. And as Adyashanti sometimes asks, and we ask this our students or people we work with as well, do you really want to awaken, or do you want to just be happy in your dream life? Because the way of the problem in awakening, or like what people stumble upon, they're still attached to the things, their own desires, the things, the way they want things to be, their old life and all of that, and that attachment needs to go, right? It doesn't mean that we cannot have all what we want, but it needs to be grounded in a higher consciousness, in a real, in truth, so to speak, right? And this letting go process is key. It requires what you just said, Jean-Claude, a grieving process, a letting go and allowing ourselves to feel that, right? And the most important key point is to stay embodied, the embodiment process, to integrate the soul, right? That's how we align with the divine will. That's how we truly, quote, ascend, by this process of soul integration, individuation, right? And what we see happening in the world, including the thing everybody, the globalist is attempting to force to everybody to take, is also part of trying to dislodge the soul from the body and all of that. So, I mean, that's a roundabout answer. And then going to the splitting, there is a splitting happening as well. I've written about this in an essay 5 years ago, the timeline reality split and the hidden forces of life. And there's what needs to be understood. There's a, quote, natural splitting happening within humanity. There are two different things. There's the artificial divide and conquer frequency happening of pitting humans against humans, beliefs, left versus right, vax versus unvax, or whatever. You know what I mean? There's this all of that. But there's a natural splitting happening, which many esoteric traditions have talked about in light of soul resonance and soul embodiment, right? What we see happening now, because with 7 billion people, there are vast different levels of soul embodiment, of levels of consciousness and levels of being, right? So different soul lessons. And that's what is quickening right now, right? This is what's happening exponentially right now. That's why we see all the conflict, the separation, the division, within our communities, friends, families, people move, and all of that. And, and I like to take it a bit lightheartedly as well. And I always remind people in the saying, tell God your plans and he will laugh at you, right? Because sometimes in this day and age, it's not necessarily what your ego personally wants to happen. It's about God's will, divine will. And when I talk about God's will or divine will, I don't mean anything religious, dogmatic God out in the sky. I mean your deeper true self of who you truly are, as opposed to the conditioned ego personality. And now we have the opportunity to break through all of this, to bring out everything out of the shadows, to transmute to a new level of consciousness. And the silver lining is now to create a new world, to create a new timeline, right? Even when people lose their jobs and all of that, well, that's see it in the light, an opportunity to take life in your own hands, find your true deeper purpose, work for yourself. It's a great opportunity for entrepreneurs right now. Be the pioneers, right? Decentralize, right? Don't make yourself dependent on mommy government and all of that. Right. So that's the opportunity. And this is not going to be over by next Tuesday, right? This is a longer period we're in right now, which also some of the esoteric traditions have called the time of transition. Mm-hmm. And as the Hopi Indian said, there's a way up and a way down, right? So it's not a guarantee, but an opportunity. So that's why it's important to really step up to the plate, so to speak.
Right. Very good. Okay. Thank you for that. And I think for the audience there, you might want to rewind that and listen to that again. There was a lot in there, Bernard, but I really appreciate that. Let's try to dive into this timeline here you're talking about and this separation. MARYAM was talking about this a couple of episodes ago on our show, and she's saying, well, I'm feeling this quickening effect. And she's very sensitive, I guess, to this time wave and the fact that we are all being squeezed through maybe this crucible here. And then for a lot of people, yes, it's a difficult situation. But if you have a little bit of sense of self here and who you are, what your soul contract is, you can recognize that also as a catalyst for change for you, and a very powerful one at that as well. So as much as it is devastating to see what's happening, you can reshift that attention here and go into that mode of creation, as Gunther was just talking about. We have the opportunity here to create that new world that we want. So, MARYAM, maybe let's start diving into that here. The experiences that you've been having with time, how that affects you, and let's start to build a roadmap here to further this conversation, because a lot of people in this audience are probably feeling the same thing, but they can't quite put their finger on it, and they're trying to navigate this a little bit better. So go ahead, the mic is yours.
Well, one, I want to say, if you imagine this, what this stands for, and that each, there's a pulling on each side, that's what's happening. V for vendetta. So in regards to time, that for a long time, what's come to me is that time is collapsing. And now in the past 6 months, especially, it's been extremely just in my face. So I say that I'm in the future, and I could also say, I told you so. And my ego would say, I told you so in 2019, medical marshal. So here we are, and this division is occurring, and this awakening is happening. And maybe people that are empaths out there, I've given this example. I've shared it, I believe, with you, JC, but not with Bernard, and maybe not with the audience. Like a sadhu sits on the tombstones and eats corpses. And so me personally, I'm sitting and I'm digesting a lot of negative information, because I'm in the medical freedom, and that is my number one thing I do every day, to be on the forefront. So when I will wake up in the middle of the night and without, if I think about it, I'll screw up, but it'll be like 3:36, and I look and I'm right on the dot, and it's acute, and I see the time is collapsing, and I check in with other people because people are running late, or I can't juggle all the projects that I'm doing, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's already 8:20. Where did the day go? So I feel this quickening, this shift. And of course, if people out there have done plant medicine like ayahuasca, then they know there is no time and space. It changes, and you can do a lot of work in a 4-hour, let's say, span during the medicine, and go through lifetimes in some cases. So I personally am I asked Spirit, what is this thing that I'm dealing with? And I heard the words, you're a timekeeper. And then I'm like, what's that? And then I heard, you're a watch. Am I watching? Am I keeping watch? I definitely there's many of us on the front lines that anticipated this, that saw this, and have been arguably training for this. But at the same time, how do you manage your time, and what is happening out there? Because it's just flying. Like, guys, we're in like year 2 of the Rona regime. So
It was just 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
yeah, 2 weeks to flatten the curve has turned into four shots to get a cup of coffee. So yeah, what do you have to say, Bernard, to this?
No, it's interesting. Like, I was just contemplating, I can relate to that, this quickening, this time, because things are speeding up. That's why it feels very important to focus on what truly matters right now. And that's what I meant with the possibility, with the silver lining, the opportunity that, it forces people to focus on what truly matters. But, with everything we have going on, even technological, we have those, we live in the World War III is a psychological warfare, right? We can agree on this: psychological warfare, mind control, as well as technological warfare, information warfare, right? So we need to really be careful that our attention doesn't get vectored away from what truly matters. Yeah. And we can easily, like, we live in this head-centric space constantly, especially nowadays. We are, taking information on all the social media aspects and this and this and that.
Right.
And sometimes it's good to stay informed, but it can also distract us, right? And I read an article by Mark Hansen. I don't know if you heard of the guy before. Many years ago, he talked about the new economy is the attention economy, and everybody wants your attention, right? So what we need to have, and with this time collapse and the speeding up and everything in this time of transition, because time is of the essence in a way, right? Yeah. We need to focus, and really, that also regarding time, you can waste a lot of time, do this and that, be busy all over the place, but never get anything done. You just waste time. There's something like that, right? You can excuse it in all kinds of ways, procrastination, whatnot. And yeah, it didn't feel like it, fine and good. But when you really focus, you collapse time. That's when you get really things done, right? That's when you slow down time and you really like immersed into something, right? And I feel it's very important. What I mean by focusing what truly matters is like, ask your questions. What I always say, there are 2 important questions to keep in mind in this day and age: know thy enemy and know thyself. Yes. What I mean by know thy enemy, understand the forces you're up against, because most people still have no understanding of the level of evil we are up against, right? And what's really happening. And there goes a much deeper agenda than on the superficial 3D level, so to speak, right? And I don't mean this to fear induce, right? It's not about getting into doom and gloom. That's a big trap in itself. I see a lot of people in truth movement get into all kinds of doom and gloom future scenarios, dystopian and whatnot, right? The key point is know their enemy, how they operate, right? Know the rules of the game, universal laws, and know their agenda, but don't feed the agenda and don't buy into the fear. Just because what their agenda is doesn't mean that they're able to get through with it. But you have to know the out of war strategy, basically. And know thyself, that's the work. Like, who am I? What do I really want? What's really going on?
That's
why
my
do
philosophy.
I feel this way? Exactly. Take responsibility for the way we feel. Get out of the victim blame trap. That's the matrix trap as well. We always externalize and blame. From a higher perspective, in light of the evolution of consciousness, all these are lessons. So they're important lessons to learn. And some of them we don't like to learn. We avoid them. We rather, externalize it and blame others. So what I always say, what's happening right now could not be any other way, right? That's the way it is. Yeah. And it's an opportunity. So there's no error in reality. Once you claim that, then you would say God made a mistake. God is everything. It's just we cannot also see with the eyes of the divine of what's really happening in the bigger process. We are also in our subjective ego personality, right? But really to know thyself and ask yourself, who am I? What do I truly want? What are my relationship, my work, and all of it? Is it aligned with integrity? That's the key. And in authenticity, are you living an integral, unified life, or living a double life? Meaning, do you feel and think and believe one way internally, but present yourself externally in a complete different way? Especially now. Right. Now is the time to speak out. I feel like it might be a bit triggering for some, but in this stage, what's happening, anybody who knows what's going on is not speaking out is culpable in what's happening. Yes. And that will have karmic consequences, right? To each their own over lifetimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, can I say something to that?
Go ahead.
Though?
Yeah.
I mean, I do speak out. I was in prison again in YouTube. My bank account is closed down. So, I'm not saying this to feel a victim, but I have the balls and I'm speaking out and I'm on the front lines. And I'm not doing it for glory or definitely not for money, but we are all culpable and we need to do it. We need to unite and find common ground.
Yeah.
And, but there's a price to pay, and I speak to people all the time. Wow, there's so much courage, and you're not doing anything. But so it's easy to say that, but there is a price that's being paid. I mean, who am I that I'm so censored and not like? So how do you reckon with that? Like we were talking, you were saying like you're growing on Telegram. They put me in Telegram jail now. Now there's Telegram is also censored. So how do you get around that? Because I don't want to stay silent. And I do believe people need to find their balls and start talking and standing up for, what do you want to be? Embodied and integrated, or a slave?
Yeah.
Like, so how do you reckon with that and the price that you might have to face?
Yeah.
I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, so the great question. Also, when I talk about this, I also imply that we all play different roles, right? So I don't expect everybody to do what I do with my writings. I've been this for 20 years, or what Jean-Claude. We all have our unique gifts. Yeah. That's what I mean. And by speaking out, I also mean careful, and from an esoteric perspective, not to fall into the trap of the revolutionary mind, as Gurdjieff talked about, just fighting shadows on the wall, right? Like Plato's allegory on the calf, or projecting our own shadow and anger onto the world, and kill those psychopaths and whatnot who are just vessels for other beings anyway. So that doesn't dissolve anything, right? Sometimes there's an esoteric saying as well: "Be gentle as doves and wise as serpents." Meaning having a certain strategy, right? In the way you have to really understand reality, and sometimes there's a time to be silent, sometimes to speak out. And also universal laws. You cannot wake up others by force. You have to respect free will. We cannot just put, I mean, it should be pretty obvious right now that you cannot convince people by logic, reason alone, right? So I always say, if we would apply true science, not the Church of Scientism, true science, true common sense, and true critical thinking, the whole official narrative would fall apart in 30 seconds. Yeah. But we cannot reach people like this, right? So it's more also about our embodied presence. So we cannot just change the world by information alone, right? That's part of it. And the best way to do it is without attachment, right? And what I say is spreading seeds of awareness, putting out and see if some may blossom, some may not. You know what I mean? That's the best I can do. There's a butterfly effect. You never know. But we have many other gifts. It's how we show up every day with our embodied awareness and all of that, right? But the key point, besides number one, speaking, and that's for everybody to decide how they do it. It doesn't have to be like us, be public and all of that. That's not everybody's role. But the key point, I feel, is really question yourself, am I in integrity? Am I unified? Am I truly living a holistic, truthful life? Am I sincere, right? Within and without. That's the key point, because as long as there is a friction between the way we present ourselves externally, internally, that will have detrimental effects on the outside world. You have another universal law. As above, so below, as within, so without. So what we're seeing in the world out there is also partly a reflection of our own division, obstruction within ourselves. So the more we heal, become unified, embodied within, the more it will affect the world in the positive sense as well. And that doesn't imply to just gaze on our navel and take the new age pill and just love and light and peace and all of this. Action is needed too. We need to also resist the anti-divine forces, right? And on the very basic level, that implies civil disobedience and non-compliance, right? And not taking the temptations of sacrifice. Yeah, exactly. Whatever your lifestyle. So that needs to be done. And how much are you willing to give for freedom in the end of the day? And not to fall into the martyr, right? Or the savior complex and all of that. But each one of us have a true gift, unique. We came here for this very place, what we can contribute and do. And we need to get out of this fear frequency and step up to the plate. And that's how you do it, is for each one to decide.
Is there a way to counter the fear for the people that realize what is going on and the needless deaths that are occurring, and that feel really deep, because I do believe it's time to save yourself. You know, it's pretty obvious today, like either what side of the V you are
Yeah.
on. And so but I'm being honest, personally, I am feeling a lot of fear, because it's, and I don't mean to be doom and gloom, but I do think it's going to get worse before it gets even worse. And
Yeah.
sorry that I just, it's not, it's not because I do look at the cup half full, and I see the silver lining, but I'm not going to also pretend that it's all going to be hunky-dory anytime soon. So
Okay.
I am feeling a lot of fear for my own self, in that maybe it's because I'm homeless right now, but like I don't have a base. But for the people out there that might be empaths, how is it being in your heart? Certainly when I'm around people and I'm an empath, I'm a mirror, then I feel joy and I want to interact and play. Is that a solution to counter the fear, if you know what's on the horizon?
Yeah. That's a great question. We can agree that fear is the real virus, right? That's really what it comes down to. And interesting, like I literally just wrote something about this on Telegram and on Facebook about this fear, because I see this a lot with people coming up, especially in our courses, and it's worldwide. By the way, on the side note, I want to also say this, people then always, location matters to a degree, right?
Yeah.
But there's no place safe from what is happening collectively. I see a lot of people moving, escaping, wanting to go to Mexico, Costa Rica, and all fine and good, to each their own. But anybody who believes that this kind of overriding survival mechanism kicks in will save them what's happening is severely deluded.
No, we're buying time. People who do that are just, I would be.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Because I have literally talked with hundreds of people over the past months going application process for the courses, literally one-on-one Zoom calls from people all over the world, from Russia, Europe, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, South America, Costa Rica, everywhere. Right.
Yeah.
And everybody's dealing with the same, right? There are some more bigger hotspots, Australia, Austria, and all of that than others. But even Costa Rica, I've talked to some people who panic moved beginning of the year to Costa Rica, and now they're mandating the thing in beginning of January. All of a sudden, prices are hijacking, right? Supply chain issues, especially in the smaller countries, right?
Right.
So
right.
there is no physical. The trap is there's no physical place to escape to. That's then you don't get it, right? And I'm not saying
That's a big
location doesn't
point
matter.
you're bringing up.
Everybody has to decide for themselves. Like I also moved away from LA to Arizona, great move, but I know that's not enough. Everything. I know a lot of people who move to Mexico and whatnot. That's just buying time. What will happen there is exactly what happened to Africa. Oh, there are no cases. So all of a sudden, this variant, right? So that's what will keep going and going. So we need a whole different approach rather than trying to escape it, and also facing and stepping up to the plate. So seeing this is something bigger beyond yourself. This is about standing up for humanity, right? Yes, we need to take care of yourself, absolutely. But also, it's not about trying to save humanity, but seizing the moment, and this is the time to embody the warrior archetype. That's the key point. And going to your question, the antidote for fear is courage, right? Everybody's fear. I have my own fears, but I act, as Castaneda wrote in Don Juan's teachings, you act with courage despite the fear, right?
Yeah.
And also, if you think about it, fear, even if you think about it logically, it's really an illusion. In the present moment, there's no fear.
Right.
Fear only exists in time. It only exists because what you think may happen, right? Your mind makes something up in linear time, and then the fear comes in of what you might think happened. In the present moment, there's no fear. So from a psychological perspective, fear is literally not real. It's an illusion.
False evidence appearing real. Fear.
Yes.
Exactly. And danger can be real, right?
Yeah.
And you face it, but fear in the sense is still a choice. But for most people, it's not a choice. And that's tricky, because a lot of people, what's triggering now is a lot of unconscious trauma, right? Stuff comes up, survival instinct, that fear, that primal fear. And that's very hard to navigate. And Maryam, I have to agree with you. It will get way worse, right? And than any better before. But then again, that's part of the process, right? I'm not into doom and gloom, but understand the process we're going for from a bigger picture perspective. I mean, I just pulled this up. Even the Hopi Blue Star Prophecy wrote, I just posted that on Telegram and Facebook. Many will appear to have lost their souls in these final days. So intense will the nature of the changes be that those who are weak in spiritual awareness will go insane, for we are nothing without spirit. And I see people, quote unquote, already losing it, going insane. They can't handle it, right? It's just too much, the shock in all of that, right? And with the fear that I know that, like I mentioned before, people react differently. Some people check out, right? They disassociate, they out of body, they think they're already in 5D and ascended and all this new age nonsense, the spiritual bypass stuff, right? Or they freeze. They're just completely caught in it, that frequency. But you have to understand that fear, that's the frequency of the matrix. So the way out is not getting stuck in fear and all of this and taking it in and hiding away, nor is it checking out and disassociating, right? Just to suppress. In the end, it's about facing it, feeling it, and then it will dissolve. When you really truly face it, really work with fear, you will see really what's behind it, and it dissolves. That's the great work. That's the shadow work. I'm not saying it's easy work, but that's the only work, right? But the fear is the fear is the frequency of the frequency that keeps everything intact. Even like I recommend anybody to check where are you making decisions from? Is it from a desperate, fearful place? Oh, I need to get out. That's not a good place to make decisions from, right? Because then you make very mechanical, trauma-based decisions rather than conscious decision grounded in spirit. So the fear, in a sense, need to be faced, right? And by facing them, it goes back to the great work, the inner work, right? To all of that, because we all carry all of that within ourselves, which just needs to be transmuted. And that process is also different for each.
It's like the fear perpetuates the creation of the prison of your own demise. Like that's, as you said, it's the frequency of the matrix, and it wants to keep you in that particular frequency.
Right.
So I love that T-shirt. Fear is the virus, and I just saw behind you there. That's Cathedral Rock, and I want to share my picture of Cathedral Rock. Absolutely, absolutely amazing place, guys. If you haven't visited Sedona, please do go.
Too bad I don't have my picture handy.
Gunther, in the EU right now, we're seeing this new narrative in the media where they're talking about PTSD, that most of the troubles we're seeing now is all, of course, related to stress. It has nothing to do with any chemicals or products. No. There's no correlation whatsoever. But what's interesting, they're now saying that because it's very stressful, we shouldn't be talking about such things as the Nuremberg codes. And because people are stressed, we should probably just do away with those codes because it's stressing people. So you can see, as you said earlier in the show, they're starting to freak out here because more and more people are waking up. And about 20 minutes ago, you said something to the effect that people who know what's going on right now and are remaining silent will eventually very soon here, just like in the Nuremberg codes, have to deal with the karma of their decisions and their associations with other people who were perpetuating this plight here on humanity. And I've been saying that a few times, so many ways, politely on the show. If you know and you're not speaking out, you're going to have to wear this. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying, look at the bigger picture of where you're going here and who you're associating with, and realizing that you are very much on the wrong side of history. You're on the wrong side of the war. And what do you get out of that? And here's my main question. For a lot of people, they're like, well, I can't leave my job, JC. I need to pay my bills. I need to pay my car, the food for my family. And so I'm going to get along here, and I'm going to keep my job. I want you to speak, Gunther, about what's happening now on the planet and this transformation, or this wheel of fortune right now that is reversing, where universe right now is actually favoring people who are in alignment and very quickly creating abundance for these people. So for the people who are fear of letting go of the old world, if they only realize now that this energy is actually propelling them, as you said earlier, catalyst for change, that you can in fact create abundance. So that excuse should not be in your equation. Let's talk about that a little bit, Gunther.
No, absolutely, I agree. I mean, people can argue for the limitations and attachment as much as they want. I talk about many of the people in these situations, but I also can see, be it more, let me talk more directly, as Gurdjieff would say, how they are lying to themselves and justifying, right? And stay in victim consciousness and all of that. And another, there may be a trigger topic as well, the whole matrix setup is also the poverty consciousness, right? A lot of people are into that's a matrix program in itself. right? And I know a lot of people going through hardship, and I'm not again taking a new age pill out of The Secret. Just imagine all of this, and then the checks keep flying. It's not how it works, right? But we live in this. We have been conditioned and controlled in so many ways that we keep ourselves enslaved in this invisible prison, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the way it's a mind program. The Matrix also a mind program. It works through us with other forces,
Right.
keeping us captured, thought injections, and all of that. And I was in the same position last year. I was working as a massage therapist in Los Angeles. I lost my job. I was working at, I have my own private practice and was this retreat center working as well. And they took a break, and then the only way to come back is, if you put the mask on and all of this, right? And I'm like, fuck no, I'm not going to do this. So I took a leap of faith, right? I just I've had already my side business here that's going on, and then Lauren, okay, let's go, let's do the podcast, you know what I mean? Do more of that. Try that. Let's step into the plate. What does divine want from us? Boom. Let's step into our own power, what we really have to offer, right? And then we started these courses and all of that. So we stopped in our own entrepreneurship, and then the guidance came. It was not easy work, right? But there was a silver lining, right? And that call we answered. And I think everybody has this opportunity in their own way. And that's what I mean. We need to shift the way
perspective and faith.
Perspective, exactly. And I'm not saying it's easy, but that's the silver lining, right? And I just, and I see the most people suffering, I see actually are people who are still holding, as I mentioned before, holding on to the old self. They still want to go back to the way things were, right? And be it all the professions and whatnot. And when people say I was forced to take the thing because of my job, no, you're not forced. It was your choice eventually. It's not like somebody had a gun on your head and and all this. It's still your choice, right? And I'm saying that's why in this day and age, we also need a higher vision, right? Goes back to our, tell God your plans and he will laugh at you. What's your deeper purpose? Who am I really? What do I truly want? And I think there's a level of, there's divine grace and there's a level of tough grace, right? That our ego still holds on, but the divine knows, no, this is not good for you, and breaks something up. And there's an opportunity, but you still don't grasp it. And that's the trap too. Ties into the hero's journey. It's about answering the call to adventure and stepping into the unknown. But there's also the trap of refusal of the call. And I've seen many people refusing the call, and they argue for the limitations, and they're suffering, and they're almost, as Adyashanti Gurji would say, addicted to their suffering and all of that, right? It ties into like, poor me, and then the world is so bad, and they're stuck in this victim place. And we need to get out of this victim place and empower ourselves and really realize our creative potential. That's the way out.
Bernard, how about if you, again, like I don't know if you do human design, but 6'2", like I've been told, like, I have no emotion. I'm a clear slate. I had a call this morning and I could feel the person and I absorbed all their stuff. And then you're like an animal where you shake it off. So what if you're like, I would argue that you can have fear and courage, because I don't let things stand in my way, and I have courage, but I'm not going to lie and say that. And again, I think it's because I don't have a home right now to call base, and I'm trying to find, and it's very disorienting to not be rooted. I think that's the source of if I had my own pad and my own little cave, then I'm like, okay, I'm ready for whatever is coming, and I'll be in the moment. So what if you're vacillating between, better, I know better, like I know I need to incorporate more joy in my life, because all I'm doing is covering the news and sitting behind, I exercise. But so do you deal with people that have the courage and have fear and are empaths? So how do you get to the next level that you can be of service to the full potential?
Well, the first thing is the foundation. I agree. I mean, I'm not completely fearless. I would be lying to myself, but I have my own fears. But the courage, like I mentioned before, you act despite the fear with courage, right? And also understanding that fear keeps you, is natural. It's not about avoiding it. I don't want to disassociate from it, right? I want to like, okay, let's face it. I'm going to sit with it right now and let myself, I'm not going to like go on Facebook or smoke a doobie to make myself feel better. As much as I would love to, I'm going to sit with it. That's okay. Let's face it right now. And then the deeper I go, I see what's really underneath it. It goes back even to my childhood, past lives, my own individual setup. You know what I mean? And then needs even what traumas I've carried over lifetimes. And the only way to dissolve it is to go into it and feel it. But the most important part is for me also in this phase, I'm in the prayer to the divine, to surrender to the divine, to the higher will, right? The divine will. And really, that it's not up to me, my own little ego wants and thinks it wants, right? There's a higher will. And the joy you're talking about, this is the true joy we find when we're connected to our true self. The true essence of our soul being is joy, pure joy for existence, not depending on any external circumstances whatsoever, right? And it's also interesting, it's also it's also about really having more this detached, healthy attitude, especially to what we think we want and desires, right? Even Buddhism says desires breed suffering, and then it kind of got distorted to deny all the physical world and desires in the material world. That's a distortion of spirituality. But A.H. Alma's, I like his work a lot from the Diamond approach. He's very influenced by Gurdjieff's teachings. He made a good point, and it's very true. Like any desire we have, how we want certain things externally, relationships, things, whatever, what we actually want is connect to essence. That's the only place that gives us all that, right? But we are kind of like always distracted externally. Well, it doesn't mean that we cannot have these desires, but know that what you're really looking for can only be found within. It's even written, seek the kingdom within, and then everything will be given to you, so to speak, right? So that's why ultimately the true place of joy, fulfillment, and abundance can be only found within. But, we can also then manifest it externally, but without the attachment, right? I work a lot with intention, rather than having goals and big aims, intention, without being fixated on it, because who knows where God and the divine will put me at some point, right? And I also want to mention out, because Laura and I myself, we have worked with thousands of people over the years, not only together individually, in online courses, workshops, retreats, all of that. And what important to understand that everybody is such a unique being, and it's an individual process, right? With vast different soul lessons. So what works for one may not work for another. And I also know Laura, my wife, she's an amazing evolutionary astrologer. Now, evolutionary astrology is not your typical mainstream astrology. It doesn't even get into sun signs and all of that. That's deeper, your soul trajectory, karmic process and past lives and all of that. And that can also give tremendous insight in your life path and soul trajectory, and really understands how unique each individual is and what everybody is here to learn and experience, right? So that's why there are no general rules. And the only way to find this is if you're sincerely engaged in this inner work to find the truth of your being.
Well, speaking of the truth of your being, you mentioned earlier about this timeline and splitting of reality. It very much feels, and you also said that the situation that is occurring now has to be this way by nature of perhaps even the initiation process that we're all going through. And within that initiation process, we are now being tested fundamentally in our loyalties. Speak to, for a lot of people to say, well, I'm loyal to this, I'm loyal to my boss, I'm loyal to my husband or my wife. This is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about integrity and authenticity with your true self. And once you view the worlds and the choices that are before you from that lens of your true self, then suddenly the loyalties become very clear, as opposed to now with all the matrix and confusion and all the division that's happening, we are confused to be looking outside for this loyalty concept. Can you explain that to the audience a little bit more?
Loyalty, I mean, the only loyalty I have is to God, the divine, right? That's my most important relationship that comes above anything else, right? And that's my own personal relationship, right? And I'm not talking about some God out there in a religious sense, right?
Yeah.
It's an inner experience. But the key point, I don't know if anybody's into astrology, but what everything set it off almost 2 years ago was the Pluto-Saturn conjunction in Capricorn. Huge conjunction in January 2020. That's when everything started. That started the big cycle. And it's the big lesson of Capricorn, right? And Capricorn, meaning it affects everyone, not just sun sign Capricorns. But the shadow side of Capricorn can be like social climbing, success for the hell of success, extreme materialism, and just work, right?
Right.
But that's the shadow side right now, of just even like being fake just to kind of get along and make money and being fake and all of this. But the positive aspect of the Capricorn side as well is integrity. And that's a lesson of integrity and slow building a foundation. It needs to have a foundation. What we're building now is a foundation. There's no quick way out of it. I think that's most people want, like a quick way out, like
Yeah.
a fast food something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Magic pill, it's not going to happen, right?
It's not happening, folks.
The more you ask for this,
No
the more
quick
you will
pill.
suffer. So then it's slow build Capricorn or methodically, right?
Yes.
So integrity is the key point, right? So whatever you build, and integrity is also based on your value system. What do you truly value, right? Value is not a desire. Value, like honesty, you know what I mean?
Right.
These kind of principles. And that's what the new consciousness is wanting for us, what the divine wants from us. The truth of your being is built on these integral principles. And that's what we need to bring forth, right? And there's many ways we lie ourselves, where the ego comes in with its own selfishness and all of that. And it's normal in the phase we're in. But ultimately, the ego just needs to surrender to the divine and become a vessel for that, right? And again, this process is different, but the integrity aspect comes again of unifying, like I mentioned before, to really match what's going on within you and externally, and not change yourself externally just because, a lot of people, let me put it this way in a practical manner, many people are people pleasers, right?
Yeah.
Mostly because of wounded insecurity, they need other people to like them, right? Otherwise, so they change themselves. They need other people's attention. We are also in an epidemic of narcissism, right?
Yep.
And all of that, which also come from a trauma response as well. So all of that needs to bring up to the front, right? In order to be true ourselves. Even compassion, compassion has been very misunderstood. People mistake niceness for compassion. Yeah, that's kind of the yin-like aspect, but there's also the yang aspect of compassion, meaning making boundaries when necessary and saying no. No is a very important aspect. Many of us, we comply too easily, right? That's how evil gets along. We comply. Sometimes you say no, make a boundary. That's the key point. Fascinating. There was, on that note, it reminds me, I saw an interview with Kübler-Ross is her last name. I forgot the full name, but she was known as the Death Lady.
Yes.
She has worked with thousands of people helping your transition, on the deathbeds, right? And there was an interview with her, right? Interesting. And the interviewer asked her, so what's the biggest message you can have for people when you work with people dying on the bed?
Yeah.
And she said one thing: learn to say no learn to say early in life. Sorry, learn to say no early in life. Excuse me, I'm mixing this up. Learn to say no early in life. Most people were going along with what other people expect.
So many people,
they're afraid, social culture program. The biggest regret that they never lived the life that truly, really desired from deep within.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
MARYAM, you wanted to follow up on that?
Well, I took a death and dying course and came across Kubler-Ross. And I think, we've talked about this on the show. A lot of there's, I believe, a reckoning going on, and that, I say, spoiler alert, we all, you die in the end, so live. Hello.
Yes.
And it really matters. Like the first story I ever wrote was about the rising rates of cremation. And I went down and met the man who's like controlling the retorts. And I've always been kind of fascinated with death. And I say I'm a cat. I'm on my 7th life, literally, like almost died many times. And so I'm afraid of not living my potential. I'm not afraid of mortality because I faced it straight in. I've looked it in the eyes many times. And I think maybe that's, again, like you say, I've said that too, fear and hate is the real virus, and it's highly contagious. Yes. And so part of this, I think there is a reckoning, and we are all being challenged and being invited to go deeper. Are you taking that invitation? Clearly, and unfortunately, we learn through tragedy. We learn because of this meat bag that we're in. And, it's everybody has their own karma and dharma. And like I said, I think it's time to save yourself. Of course, we're all in service and helping others along the way, people who actually want to hear the information. The beginning days, at least for me, of like, hello, this is happening. Those days are over now. So it's mortality. We are eternal beings in a third dimension. And do you find, Bernard, that you have people that, like, I don't want to use the word ascending, but like are superpowers, like this thing with time, it's almost like a superpower. I just don't know how to use it properly, or I don't know, what am I going to do? Go to the blackjack table and go all on 34? What am I going to do with this gift of seeing numbers or ages? Anyway, that's a lot to say. So my question is, do you see people that are heightening in their intuition or their empathic or telepathic skills? Because while they want to get us into the metaverse and keep us disembodied, and there's things that are attacking the heart to keep us disconnected. Go stay in your VR Ready Player One world, or go and hang out in the lower realms of lower vibrations. And this part is being literally, proverbially attacked. This is our humanity right here, right? So anyway, that's a lot of things I'm saying.
So what was the question?
Do you see more people embodying or navigating their superpowers, which are more beyond the five senses? And
I have to say, okay, I get the question. I mean, truth to be told, I mean, that's my own experience. Again, working with thousands of people, like, just, what I see, unfortunately, more like right now, also that this awakening impulse being hijacked. I see a lot of people in illusion, and especially with intuition. We go in depth in our course program in exploring intuition. Okay. Intuition, really, from a deeper perspective, requires a high level of being, because many people, myself included, mistake many things for intuition, which are not intuition, right? All kinds of impressions and feelings and all of that. So that attracts a higher state, right?
Can you give an example of
that? For example, whatever. When you say, for example, my intuition was actually off about this, well, then it was not intuition, these kind of things. So what I'm saying is, like, what I'm also seeing in this day and age, what is really practical, because also important to understand that simply psychic intuitive gifts, or these psychic powers, siddhis, as it's called in the yogic tradition, is not equals, like, shows your level of awareness and awakening. You can have all these powers. That's actually the trap in spiritualism and the occult teachings, to get really enamored with these spiritual powers, right? But they don't not relate to your level of awakening. You can actually get lost in them, and get lost in the abyss of the occult, and become very powerful, psychic, manifest anything, and all of that. But that also, there's a price to be paid from the esoteric tradition, the alchemical pact with the devil, so to speak, right? So I think we have this potential, right? But the key, it needs to be built on this foundation. So what I see, like, the best way to have, my wife Laura, she's extremely psychic intuitive, right? We literally telepathic sometimes, like she said thinks something, I said it back and forth, right? So that's a natural occurrence. But to really, the point is to use these gifts with integrity, with responsibility and humility, requires a certain level of embodied being, right? Many people, the ego can hijack all of this very easily, and then people think they're this and that and all of that, right? And then these occult forces, other forces, hijack the awakening impulse right now as well. And I see this happening right now. That's the trap. Let's see trap, or the danger right now as well. This awakening impulse can be easily be hijacked by other forces, right? Occult forces, so to speak. So it's very important that we stay in this whole process in body, like soul integration and all of that. And then we all have our certain gifts. I'm also have my own intuitive gifts and whatnot. But the key point is really, like, what I always say, what is it used for? What do I bring it under what, control, so to speak? And for me, goes back to the divine, because these powers can also be easily abused, right? So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of my take on it.
That's interesting. Very good. The traps. I mean, I think, let's say I've worked with psychics, and let's say I get a message. I'm very cognizant of not filtering it through my biases. I'm getting this. If I'm working with someone, I don't know what it means. Does this mean anything to you? Or I could say, I'm interpreting it this way. And I've worked with people where I know they're getting a message, but then they're filtering it through their bias, and they don't have
Yes,
enough of
the
an
bias.
EQ to
Yeah.
be able to determine or distinguish between this. I'm projecting myself onto this interpretation. So I think that's very keen to
No,
say.
that's
Yeah.
I just, it reminded me of something. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. It's very, very important point. The bias, absolutely. That's why it's feel important this day and age. Too many people like intuitive this, or I resonate this. I don't. Like the saying goes, take what resonates and leave the rest. Like we all heard about that, right? It's such a great saying. And there's truth in that, right? Absolutely. But I even wrote an article about false resonance. Again, you can mistake all kinds of emotional impressions, wishful thinking, your own unconscious bias, what you want to be true, for resonance.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's also the inverse of that, where people say, hey, that doesn't resonate, I don't want to listen to it. But the reason it doesn't resonate is because it's bringing up a core wound that you haven't dealt with.
That's what I'm saying. Then also what I
Yeah.
said, just because something brings up fear doesn't mean it's not true. Right. So just something because it makes you feel good doesn't mean it's true either.
Right.
Right. That's a whole new age thing and all of that, especially channel material, which is a whole can of worms in itself, right? Hijacked by other occult forces.
You mentioned
but I mean, so that's a key point with the resonance is really like, that's the inner work. We need to tune the reading instrument ourselves. That goes back to the deeper grounded inner work. And that's why I'm so, after all these years, since the 90s, I've done this work, dug deep into the rabbit hole and all of this. And I see like the foundational psychological work is so key, which most people want to avoid because they want to like go into some weird new age world. You know what I mean? Again, the 5D, but like let's focus on basic shadow work, your basic childhood wounding, trauma. Because I also seen within myself, I had my new age pill. I was this must be the truth, and all of it resonates. It's just my intuition, absolutely. Later on, my following research, my disillusionment process, I had to eat humble cake very often. No, I was actually resonating with lies and threw away the truth, right? So that I had to face in myself and accept in myself, right? So
and there's a lot of that going on right now.
Exactly. So I'm also really like, that's an ongoing journey, so to speak.
Well, what you're talking about, Bernard, is really something that's lacking, in my opinion, which is wisdom. Yes. Wisdom. Where are the leaders with any wisdom? We're seeing so much lack of adulting, as I say, but really, the elders would carry this wisdom, but I don't know what another word for wisdom. I just know there ain't a lot of it. And
wisdom also requires, I mean, you see right now, it's a litmus test too. A lot of colors are being revealed, especially in the spiritual community, spiritual teachers, leaders who go along with this agenda and all of that, right?
Yeah.
To me, like if you're truly embodied in yourself, in your soul, right? It's common sense and very clear that you do not take this thing in any other circumstances, right? So what's even beyond the science and whatnot, right? So that's, what I mean, we live also in a world where common sense and critical thinking have left the building, right? As I mentioned before.
Right.
And with wisdom, but wisdom also requires a certain level of embodiment and a certain level of awareness, right? And I think we're being asked to step up as the leaders. I think that the age of the guru is over as well. We're seeking of this like savior leader, that the age of the Pisces, that kind of bails us out. There's no savior is going to bail us out.
We all have to level up ourselves.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Bernard, as we wind up here in the last couple of minutes of the show, what is the common denominator of the clientele that is awakening to the process and they're finding something within them to make that first step to say, hey, yes, we are in this time of transition and I want to be embodied and souled and awakening. So what's the common denominator of people coming to these courses? And also, what's the common denominator of them leaving the courses? What's their success stories? Share that a little bit here with the audience.
Well, the common denominator, generally speaking, is definitely people like speaking to all over the law. They're also alone on this path, right? They're kind of isolated, just, separated from friends and family, who don't believe, so they feel alone.
Yeah.
Also the disillusionment, right? That beyond the information, they see more is needed, right? Just they get just lost in the information, like this doesn't help them anymore, right? Just being aware of what's going on. They feel there's a lot of stuff's coming up. And so number one, the search for community, not only for like-minded people, but people are also engaged in the same work, right? Like this inner work where it can be vulnerable. And we have even sharing circles with from all over the world. And if you've done sharing circles before, I'm sure you see the magic and a lot of healing happens by the act of sharing, showing yourself vulnerably, and like, what many people have never experienced before. Right. So that is beautiful. And we just guide them through, like Laura and I, we don't claim to be awakened. We're not gurus, but we have a certain knowledge, experience, and teachings, based on this fourfold approach of holistic self-work, working on all levels in context of the bigger picture, understanding the forces we're up against in light of the evolution of consciousness. And our intention is really to help people to help themselves, right? We want people to help you to tune into your own inner guidance, your intuition, to empower you, to help you to connect you to your deeper soul purpose, right? And give you especially the right tools and practices and exercises to navigate the times we're in right now. See, even this program is not just reading about the work, but engaging in it. Right. But we know also the will needs to be engaged. With this work, what's been called also the great work, resistance will come up, right? There will be like resistance within, excuses, self-sabotage, other forces, interferences, distractions. So you need the warrior attitude for this work. What's called in esoteric science crossing the threshold, and sometimes people don't cross the threshold, right? For the reason I mentioned before, they're still too attached to their old lives and way of being and whatnot. So it creates you need the will, so to speak. But what people mostly get out of it is definitely community. We have an alumni group from all past course participants, right, on Telegram. They interact, they met up in person.
That's
and
nice.
Especially a lot of people have never truly engaged in this inner work and really never realized how much they're carrying, because we have constantly suppressed, avoided it, or externalized, right?
Right.
So that's really what helps people to become more real with themselves, so to speak.
Very good. Okay, so I have the Telegram link here in the live chat if you guys want to check that out. And I just got them before the show. So folks, right after the show, I'll put this in the pinned comments and the description box below, so you guys can go and follow those links. Before I let you go here, Bernard, when's the next available course dates? Are you still doing these particular courses, or you have something else that's coming up also that might be of interest here to the audience?
Yeah, if you scroll down a bit, you see the date here. This one literally just filled up yesterday, so this one is gone until so we will have the next one starting sometime in March. We don't know yet, so sign up to my mailing list on my website. But we keep doing them. This is already the 7th round we're hosting, and it's definitely getting more popular. We're getting hundreds of applications, but we keep it small, because it's better to have the group container, right? Yes. So we could get way more people, you know what I mean, and all of this, but that's not how it works,
And for the people who want to maybe just dip their feet slowly here, in the meantime that the courses are not available.
In the meantime, well, there's tons of free content on my website, Veil of Reality. I have over 60 articles and essays based on over 20 years of work. There are tons of videos, interviews, lectures. I produced 5 films.
Bernard is epic.
So there's a lot of free content people can dive into.
Also, well. And are you also posting on YouTube, or are you in jail there for now?
I'm on YouTube, not that much. What I do on YouTube is mostly I repost our podcasts every 2 weeks, and that's it. But,
and on a daily basis, your musings mostly here on Telegram?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Wow, fascinating conversation, and time flies. Maryam, before we go, you have a few promos here of the work you're doing.
I have a few things. One, I'm working with a new deck. It's White Light Oracle, and I pulled a card, which I'm not going to read, but it's the Theta of Venus. We are getting into a Venus retrograde, and Venus is love. I do want to tell people that I do think there's an attack on our hearts, and our hearts have a resonance of 3 feet. So just for good measure, let's do 6 feet apart. So just so we know that the resonance of the heart outweighs the brain. And it's important to note. I have a lot of things that I'm doing. So if I can have an opportunity, I am organizing a protest in front of a jail for the Grenon family that are responsible for MMS. The sons have been in jail for 17 months without due process, without a speedy trial, and are drinking poison contaminated tap water, eating highly processed foods,
Is this the one, Maryam? Just point me there.
Yes.
Okay.
So these are the Grenons, and Mark, who I speak to from jail every single day. and I love dearly. And I've been keeping in touch with him. And I thought, since I'm in Florida, maybe I could go and see the two boys, two of his sons. And now I'm working with the vaccine police, Christopher Key, and we are, I'm producing mostly this. We will be speaking on the 19th of December in Miami in front of the FDC. I will be going, I believe, with Christopher Key, the vaccine police, to St. Petersburg and meeting Lisa Litecoin in person, and Jimmy. Hi, Jimmy. So, and giving them a hug and giving a free MMS out. I am almost finished my colossal protocol guide against of poison. And that was going to be like 15 pages, and it's been 4 months, and I have produced like 150 pages because I'm explaining the mechanisms before I outline the collection of protocols that I've worked very hard that will hopefully help thousands of people. And I am asking for support in my project that I can't wait to get back to, which is George Floyd. And I've put a gives and go just to tell people that I'm speaking to the appeal attorneys of Derek Chauvin. And I sent them my trailer, and he's like, wow, I'd like to see the rest. And I'm like, I'd like to see the rest too. So help me make it happen, please, because people do not want to have this out. And I will tell you that I know more about this multi-layered psyop than anyone on this planet, including the lawyers who didn't know half of the things I had to share with them. Why?
If you want to see the trilogy that Maryam so beautifully produced, you can find it on our pay-per-view, beyondmystic.net/pay-per-view. And of course, here, if you want her to continue this work, please do support her here at givesandgo.com/Maryam Henein. And the link is in the live chat. You had something else also, Maryam, before we go?
Just want to say, I shared my honey colony. Please buzz on over. If you use Beyond Mystic, then, that's not it. Okay. Yeah. I am doing consults. I'm a little backlogged. I have about 15 of them to do in New Year. I still have some slots for the quick where I pull a card. I am really focused on the temple. And a lot of these protocols that I've outlined are arguably things you should have been doing a long time ago to detox. And detox is not a juice cleanse. So you can use Beyond Mystic. All of our products are made in America, and they're beautiful, whether it's a lubricant or silver or molecular hydrogen. Everything is looking at looking through the lens of functional medicine, optimizing your biology, not eradicating the immune system. And finally, I would like to say that you can check out my story that just came out in Vaxter, which is,
or this one here?
Sorry, I'm doing a lot of things. This is Astro World. Open your eyes to a whole new wicked universe. And I'm very honored to be working with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny again. And this is a 2-part series. And I'm now I will be working on a story on Charles Lieber, because we're talking about the Maxwell case, but let me tell you, his trial is going on. And who is he? He's the nanotech king. And his trial is happening right now. And then finally, please go to Gab. I am calling and recording calls, whether it's with Pfizer to report my mom's adverse reactions, or I just did a call with Chris Nelson, who's a Florida freedom fighter. I was on a call with Sarah Westall and Dr. Mary Crewley and Mary Fanning. And there's tons of different stuff. I'm constantly producing, and I'm a censored journalist. Please support my work, because I work for God and I work for truth. And I need support as well, please.
So guys, go to
I know
Venmo.com.
that's a lot that I just out there.
That's okay.
yeah.
You haven't been here in a while. We had to catch up on all
Yeah.
of that. And as you can see,
Merci.
folks, MARYAM is absolutely busy. And yes, please do go and support our dear friend here with all of her work. So the best way here is using her Venmo link. It's in the link now. And also in the description box below if you want to follow her on a daily basis. Also, please do check her out at BeLady here on Twitter.
Yes, support my abusive relationship with Twitter.
But no longer with Jack. Jack's not there anymore.
Right, Jack is
It's a
out.
transitioning difficult situation. All right, folks, that was the Quantum Woo with the amazing MARYAM HENEIN and the super cool Bernhard Gunter. Thank you so much, Bernhard. You've got a lot of love in the chat again this evening. We have to do this again for a part 2. There's so much going on, and I think a lot of people really need this deep wisdom, and they're absolutely enjoying these conversations here this evening. Folks, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe here on Beyond Mystic 3. I'm taking a few days off, but I do have a premiere coming up this Saturday. Bernard talked about tarot. We're looking into the alignments here for December, and this is going to be a fabulous show for you guys, so don't miss that. It's going to be on Saturday, December 11th at 8 o'clock Eastern. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic. I love you guys. Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.
Au revoir.